The stars looked different from this part of space. Commander Alice Wright stared at the main screen of the bridge. She had been in command of the Earth Defense Fleet ship Constellation for 5 years now. In that time, she had patrolled the edges of human space, visited colonies, and even made first contact with 2 alien species. But she had never been this far from Earth before. "Commander, you should see this," said Lieutenant John Miller from his communication station. Alice walked over, her boots making soft sounds on the polished floor. "What have you got, Miller?" "A signal, ma'am. Very faint, coming from Sector Gamma 87, about 3 light years from our current position." Alice looked at his screen. The signal pattern was clear even to her untrained eye. A repeated sequence that couldn't be natural. "Is it one of ours?" Miller shook his head. "No, ma'am. It doesn't match any human codes. And there are no registered ships or colonies in that sector. Alien. Yes, but not from any species we've met before." Miller adjusted some settings and the signal became clearer. "It's a mathematical sequence. Prime numbers, followed by what looks like coordinates. And it's repeating." Alice straightened up. "An SOS. "That would be my guess, Commander." She returned to her chair and tapped her fingers on the armrest. The Constellation was on a routine patrol mission. Their orders were simple: map the region, look for resources, and return to Earth in 3 weeks. Investigating an alien distress call wasn't part of the plan. "How old is the signal?" she asked. "Based on the distance and degradation, I'd say about 6 months, Commander. 6 months, whoever sent it might already be dead. Or it could be a trap. The universe wasn't always friendly." "Put it on speakers," Alice ordered. A series of beeps filled the bridge. Even without understanding the language, Alice could hear the urgency in the pattern. "Ship status?" she asked. Her first officer, Lieutenant Sam Green, responded immediately. "All systems green. Fuel at 87%. We can reach the source of the signal in about 5 days at standard speed." Alice nodded slowly. 5 days there, 5 days back. It would cut their mission short, but not by much, and if someone really needed help... "Alert Fleet Command," she decided. "Tell them we're investigating a possible distress signal of unknown origin. Send them the coordinates and the signal pattern." "Yes, Commander," Miller acknowledged. "It will take about 2 days for our message to reach Earth and 2 more for any response." "We're not waiting. Set course for the signal source. Standard. Speed." Alice turned to the ship's doctor, who was also on the bridge. "Dr. Peter Lee, prepare medical facilities for possible alien physiology. Without knowing what species we're dealing with, I can only make general preparations." "Doctor," Lee warned, "do what you can, and run the signal pattern through our database again. Maybe there's something we missed." The next 5 days passed in tense preparation. The crew trained for every possible scenario, from medical emergencies to combat situations. Alice spent hours reviewing first contact protocols and studying the mysterious signal. On the 5th day, the Constellation dropped out of hyperspace near the signal source. What they found wasn't what anyone expected. "Commander, we're picking up a small vessel," reported Linda Taylor from the sensor station. "About 1/8 our size. Heavy damage to its hull. Minimal power readings." "Life signs?" Alice asked, leaning forward in her chair. "Faint but present. At least 2 distinct patterns." "Weapons?" "None that we can detect. It appears to be some kind of transport ship." Alice made her decision. "Bring us alongside. Prepare boarding team Alpha, full environmental suits until we know it's safe. I want Dr. Lee and communications specialist Kevin Brown with them." As the Constellation maneuvered closer, they got their first visual of the alien ship. It was sleek, with curved lines that suggested it was built for atmosphere as well as space. But now it was barely recognizable. Huge sections of the hull were torn away, exposing the internal structure. Whatever had attacked it had been thorough. The boarding team reported in after 20 minutes. "Commander, we've found survivors," said Officer Susan Clark, her voice coming through slightly distorted by her suit's comm system. 2 aliens, humanoid but definitely not human. They're alive but in bad shape." "Can they communicate?" Alice asked. "One of them is conscious." Brown is trying to establish contact now. Alice waited, tension building in her stomach. This was the moment that could change everything. Commander. Brown's voice came through after several minutes. The alien speaks a language I've never heard before, but they understand basic mathematics. I've established a simple yes-no system. Ask if they sent the distress signal, Alice instructed. A pause, then. Yes, they did. Ask if they're at war. Another. Pause. Yes, but not as aggressors. They say they were. I think the closest translation is prey. They were being hunted. By whom? The longest pause yet. They call them the Drakari. From what I can gather, they're a species that has been conquering this sector of space for decades. These aliens, they call themselves the Nalari, are refugees. Their homeworld was invaded. They've been running for months. Alice felt a chill. The galaxy was vast and Earth had only explored a tiny fraction of it. They knew there were other spacefaring species out there, some friendly, some not. But this was the first time they'd encountered evidence of a large-scale interstellar conflict. Commander, Dr. Lee cut in. These aliens need immediate medical attention. I can stabilize them here, but they need better care than I can provide on their ship. Bring them aboard, Alice ordered without hesitation. Full quarantine protocols until you clear them. As the medical team prepared to transfer the aliens, Kevin Brown continued his makeshift communication. Commander, they're showing me something. It's a recording, I think. Can you transmit it to the bridge? Sending now. The main screen on the bridge flickered, then showed a planet viewed from orbit. It was beautiful. Blue oceans, green and purple land masses, white clouds. Then the view changed. Ships appeared, angular and aggressive. Nothing like the sleek vessel the Nalari used. Weapons fired. The planet's surface erupted in explosions. The bridge crew watched in silence as scenes of destruction played out. Cities burning, people running. And the attackers, tall, reptilian creatures with elaborate armor and weapons, moving through the chaos with cold precision. When the recording ended, the bridge remained quiet. Alice Wright stood up, her decision already made. Send everything to Earth Command. The signal, the recording, everything we know about these Drakari. And prepare the ship for emergency jump to Earth space. We're taking our new friends home. As the Constellation's engines powered up, Alice looked again at the damaged Nalari ship. Something told her that this small encounter, this one distress call from deep space, was going to change the course of human history forever. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. During that time, Dr. Peter Lee worked day and night to keep the 2 Nalari aliens alive. Their bodies were similar to humans in some ways. They had 2 arms, 2 legs, and walked upright. But their skin was a pale blue color and they had 4 fingers on each hand instead of 5. Their eyes were large and completely black with no visible pupils. The healthier of the 2 was named Zial. The other, who remained in critical condition, was called Etha. Through patient work with translation programs and basic sign language, communications specialist Kevin Brown was slowly building a way to talk with Zial. Commander Alice Wright visited the medical bay each day. On the 21st day of their return journey, she arrived to find Zial sitting up on the edge of the bed. Commander, Dr. Lee greeted her. Our guest is doing much better today. Can he understand me? Alice asked. Kevin Brown nodded. Some basic phrases. I've been teaching him English and he learns fast. Alice approached Zial carefully. Hello, I am Commander Wright. The alien nodded. Hello, Commander. His voice had a musical quality, like he was singing the words. Thank you. You save us. You're welcome, Alice said. We want to help. Can you tell us more about what happened to your people? Kevin set up a tablet with translation software to help with the conversation. Zial spoke in his own language and the tablet translated his words to English. The Drakari came to our system 5 years ago, Zial explained through the translator. At first they said they wanted trade. They offered technology, medicine, but then more ships came. Military ships, they demanded our resources. When our leaders refused, they attacked. Why didn't your people fight back? Alice asked. We tried. The Nalari are not warriors. We are explorers, scientists. Our weapons were no match for theirs. They destroyed our cities from orbit, killed millions in the first day. Alice felt sick. And your government? Gone. The Drakari execute all leaders who resist. Those who surrender become puppets. My partner Etha and I worked at a research station in orbit. When the attack began, we took a ship and escaped. We've been running ever since trying to find help. How did you know to send a signal that we would understand? Zial's large eyes blinked slowly. We didn't. We sent signals in many forms, hoping someone would hear. We used mathematics because it is universal. All intelligent species understand numbers. How many other systems have the Drakari conquered? At least 12 that we know of. Maybe more now. Alice stood up straight. Thank you, Zial. Rest now. We'll be reaching Earth soon. Our leaders will want to speak with you. As she left the medical bay, Alice felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. The Constellation wasn't just bringing home 2 refugee aliens. They were bringing news of a threat that humanity had never faced before. 3 days later, the Constellation entered Earth's solar system. They were met at the edge by 4 military vessels that escorted them to Earth orbit. Usually, such a heavy escort would only be used for high-ranking officials or dangerous prisoners. Alice knew that her reports had been taken seriously. As soon as they docked at the orbital station, a team of officials came aboard. Among them was Admiral Richard Garcia, the Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces. His presence alone told Alice how important this situation had become. Commander Wright, the Admiral said as they shook hands. Your discovery has caused quite a stir back home. I can imagine, sir, Alice replied. What happens now? Now we talk to your alien friends and find out everything they know about these Drakari. The Security Council is meeting in 2 days. You'll be expected to present your findings. Yes, sir. The Nalari were transferred to a secure medical facility on the station. Teams of specialists, xenobiologists, linguists, military strategists, spent hours interviewing Zial. Etha had improved but was still too weak to talk much. Alice spent the night before the Security Council meeting preparing her report. She had seen the recordings from the Nalari ship dozens of times now, but they still made her blood run cold. The systematic destruction, the precision of the attacks, the Drakari weren't just conquerors, they were exterminators. The United Earth Security Council consisted of representatives from all major Earth nations and colonies. They gathered in a large circular room, with Admiral Garcia and Commander Wright standing at the center. Ladies and gentlemen, the Admiral began, 2 months ago the EDF Constellation received a distress signal from deep space. What they discovered has profound implications for Earth and indeed for all of humanity. Commander Wright will present her findings. Alice stepped forward, her voice steady despite her nerves. Council members, what I am about to show you is footage recovered from a refugee vessel belonging to a species called the Nalari. The lights dimmed, and the recordings played on the large screen. The council watched in silence as the Drakari ships descended on the Nalari homeworld, as cities burned and people died. When it ended, the room remained quiet for several seconds. The 2 survivors we rescued have provided us with extensive information about the Drakari Empire, Alice continued. They are a reptilian species that evolved in a harsh environment. Their society is built on strength and conquest. They believe that the strong have the right to rule the weak, and they see all other species as inferior. How advanced is their technology? Asked one council member. Their weapons and ships are more advanced than ours in some areas, particularly their energy weapons, but our survivors believe that Earth's fleet is larger and more diverse. What do they want? Asked another representative. Resources, territory, and slave labor. They strip conquered worlds of valuable minerals, establish colonies, and force the native populations to work in mines and factories. Admiral Garcia stepped forward. Council members, Earth has never interfered in conflicts between alien civilizations before. But this situation presents a clear and present danger to galactic stability. If the Drakari continue to expand, they will eventually reach human space. What are you suggesting, Admiral? Asked the Council President. I am suggesting that we have both a strategic interest and a moral obligation to act. The Nalari sought us out specifically because they had heard of humanity's values, our belief in freedom, our willingness to stand against tyranny. Alice watched as the council members exchanged looks. This was unprecedented. Earth had fought wars before, but never against an alien empire, never so far from home. The defense fleet is prepared to present options for a military response, the Admiral continued. But this decision must come from the Council. The Council President nodded, gravely. We will need time to consider this matter. Commander Wright, are your Nalari guests well enough to speak to the Council directly? Yes, sir. They are eager to tell their story. Then have them brought here tomorrow. We will hear from them before making any decision. As the meeting ended, Alice found herself standing next to Admiral Garcia. What do you think they'll decide, sir? She asked quietly. The Admiral's face was grim. I don't know, Commander, but I do know this. If we turn our backs on the Nalari, we turn our backs on everything humanity claims to stand for. Alice nodded. Tomorrow would change the course of human history, and it had all started with a single distress call from the darkness of space. The next day, Zial and Etha stood before the United Earth Security Council. Etha was still weak, leaning slightly on Zial for support. Their blue skin looked pale under the bright lights of the council chamber. Kevin Brown stood nearby to help, with translation, though the Nalari had already learned an impressive amount of English. Thank you for saving us, Zial began. His musical voice echoed in the quiet room. But we did not come just to save ourselves. We came to warn you and to ask for help. Etha spoke next, her voice softer than Zial's. The Drakari destroyed our home. They will destroy more worlds. They will not stop until someone stops them. The Council President leaned forward. Why did you seek out humans specifically? There must be other spacefaring species closer to your home. We heard stories, Zial explained. Stories about humans, how you fought each other for centuries but then united, how you value freedom above all else, how you protect the weak. Our scientists studied your transmissions for years, Etha added. We learned your languages, your history. We believe that humans are different from other species. You feel deeply, you act when others only watch. Commander Alice Wright stood at the back of the room, watching the council members' faces. Some looked moved by the aliens' words. Others remained skeptical. The Drakari must be stopped, Zial continued, not just for us but for all peaceful species. They have conquered 12 systems already. They enslave populations, strip planets of resources, destroy all who resist. Show them, Etha said quietly. Zial removed a small device from his pocket and placed it on the floor. A hologram appeared showing a star map. 12 star systems glowed red. These are the worlds they have taken, Zial said. And these, several more stars lit up in yellow, are the worlds they will target next, based on their pattern of expansion. The council members studied the map carefully. One of them, a tall woman with short gray hair, spoke up. How far is this from Earth space? At their current rate of expansion, they will reach your colonies in approximately 15 of your Earth years, Zial answered. The room filled with murmurs. 15 years wasn't long in terms of interstellar politics. Admiral Garcia stepped forward. Council members, I have reviewed all the evidence provided by the Nalari. I have also run simulations on potential military responses. It is my professional opinion that the Drakari represent a significant threat to Earth security and to galactic stability. I recommend immediate action. The Council President nodded. What kind of action are you suggesting, Admiral? A 3-phase operation. First, humanitarian aid to the Nalari refugees who have escaped to nearby systems. Second, a diplomatic mission to attempt peaceful contact with the Drakari leadership. And third, if diplomacy fails, a military response to liberate the conquered worlds. For the next 4 hours, the Council debated the Admiral's proposal. Some argued that Earth should not interfere in alien conflicts. Others insisted that it was humanity's duty to help those in need, regardless of species. Economic costs were weighed against moral obligations. Military risks were calculated against strategic benefits. Commander Wright was called to answer questions several times. She spoke honestly about what she had seen and what she believed. The footage from the Nalari ship shows a level of brutality that should concern us all, she told the council. If this is how the Drakari treat peaceful species, how will they treat us when they reach human space? Because they will reach us eventually. The only question is whether we face them now, on our terms, or later, on theirs. Outside the council chamber, news of the Nalari and the Drakari had spread across Earth and its colonies. Millions watched live streams of experts discussing the situation. Social media platforms were flooded with opinions and debates. In city squares and community centers, people gathered to watch public broadcasts about the alien refugees. As the council continued to deliberate, public sentiment became clear. Humans across the solar system were outraged by the Drakari's actions. They demanded that Earth help the Nalari. Protest signs read "Freedom for all species" and "Defend the galaxy." Children sent drawings to the Nalari survivors. Religious leaders called for compassion and action. By evening, the council had reached a decision. The chamber was packed with officials and media representatives as the council president stood to announce their vote. After careful consideration of all evidence and arguments, the United Earth Security Council has voted to approve Admiral Garcia's three-phase plan. Humanitarian aid will begin immediately. Diplomatic efforts will be initiated within 1 week, and our military forces will be mobilized and prepared for potential conflict. The president turned to face the Nalari. We cannot promise victory, but we can promise that Earth will stand with you and all other species who wish to live in freedom. Zial and Etha bowed their heads in a gesture of deep respect. As the meeting ended, Admiral Garcia approached Commander Wright. Congratulations, Captain Wright. Alice looked surprised. Captain, your promotion came through this morning, and you've been assigned to command the EDF Vindicator. She's one of our newest battlecruisers, just completed her trials last month. Thank you, Admiral. But I'm not sure I understand why. Because you're the only human officer who has seen firsthand what we're up against. And because the Nalari trust you. The Admiral handed her a data tablet. Review these files. The Vindicator ships out in 5 days. Within hours of the Council's decision, Earth began what would later be called the Great Mobilization. For the first time in human history, the entirety of Earth's military might was being prepared for deployment to another star system. Every available warship was recalled from patrol. Reserve fleets were activated. Retired officers returned to service. Manufacturing facilities worked around the clock to produce weapons, supplies, and equipment. Meanwhile, diplomatic channels buzzed as Earth's ambassadors contacted their alien allies. The Arcturians, impressed by humanity's resolve, offered their advanced sensor technology. The Solari Federation promised medical ships and supplies. Captain Alice Wright stood in the docking bay of the orbital station, watching as crew members boarded the EDF Vindicator. The ship was massive, nearly twice the size of the Constellation, with sleek lines and powerful weapons arrays. Lieutenant John Miller approached her, saluting smartly. Reporting for duty, Captain. I requested transfer from the Constellation. Thought you might want some familiar faces on your bridge. Alice smiled. Request approved, Lieutenant. We ship out tomorrow morning. As the sun set over Earth, a fleet unlike anything humanity had ever assembled took shape in orbit. Over 300 vessels, ranging from massive dreadnoughts to agile corvettes, prepared for the long journey to Nalari space. Admiral Garcia's message echoed through every ship. We go not as conquerors, but as liberators. Not for glory or territory, but because it is right. Today, the galaxy will learn what happens when humanity's compassion is matched by its might. The journey to Nalari space took 6 weeks. Earth's Armada traveled in formation, using the new hyperspace engines that had been developed just 5 years earlier. During that time, the ship's crews trained and prepared for what might be the greatest challenge humanity had ever faced. On the EDF Vindicator, Captain Alice Wright spent hours studying Drakari tactics based on information provided by Zial and other Nalari refugees who had joined the fleet. The reptilian warriors were aggressive and ruthless, but they were also predictable. They relied on overwhelming force rather than clever strategy. Their confidence is their weakness, Alice explained to her officers during a briefing. They've never been seriously challenged. They don't expect resistance. Lieutenant John Miller nodded from his seat at the communications station. According to Zial, they don't even bother to encrypt most of their transmissions. They think no one would dare to spy on them. That's an advantage we can use, Alice replied. Once we arrive, our first priority will be to jam their communications. Without coordination, their fleet will be vulnerable. The day before they were due to arrive at the edge of Nalari space, Admiral Garcia called a meeting of all ship captains via hologram. His image stood in the center of the Vindicator's command deck, addressing Alice and her officers. We've received new intelligence from our forward scouts, the Admiral said. The Drakari have consolidated their forces at 3 key points in the Nalari system. They appear to be using the former Nalari homeworld as their main base with secondary bases on 2 moons. A star map appeared beside the Admiral, showing the positions of Drakari ships and installations. Our plan remains the same, he continued. Phase 1. We will emerge from hyperspace simultaneously at these coordinates. Red dots appeared on the map. The Drakari have orbital defense platforms here, here, and here. These must be neutralized immediately. Phase 2. Captain Wright, your battle group will secure the space around Nalari Prime and prepare for ground. Operations. Captain Edwards, your group will handle the moons. Captain Lopez, your ships will establish a blockade to prevent Drakari reinforcements from arriving. Alice studied the map carefully. Her battle group consisted of the Vindicator and 15 other ships of various sizes. Their target would be the heart of Drakari power in this system. Remember, Admiral Garcia concluded, our goal is liberation, not destruction. We want to free the Nalari people with minimal loss of life on all sides. But make no mistake, if the Drakari refuse to surrender, we will show them the full might of Earth's forces. The next morning, Earth's Armada arrived at the edge of Nalari space. The fleet split into its assigned groups, each preparing to jump to their designated coordinates. On the bridge of the Vindicator, Alice took her seat in the command chair. All stations report. One by one, her officers confirmed their readiness. Weapons online, shields at maximum, engines ready. Marines prepared for deployment. Communications, open a channel to all ships in our battle group, Alice ordered. When the channel was open, she spoke clearly. This is Captain Wright. In 5 minutes, we will make our final jump into Nalari space. We've trained for this. We're ready. Remember why we're here. Not just to stop a threat to Earth, but to help people who couldn't help themselves. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity stands for. She paused, then added, right out. Lieutenant Miller looked up from his station. That was good, Captain. Short and to the point. Alice smiled slightly. No time for long speeches when you're about to go into battle. Admiral Garcia's voice came through the ship-wide channel. All ships prepare for synchronized jump on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. The Vindicator and hundreds of other ships entered hyperspace simultaneously. The jump lasted only seconds. When they emerged, they were in the Nalari system. And the battle began immediately. The Drakari weren't expecting an attack. Their orbital defense platforms were slow to respond as Earth ships appeared all around them. The Vindicator fired its main weapons, destroying one platform before it could even activate its shields. Jamming successful, reported Lieutenant Miller. Drakari communications are down across the system. Alice nodded. Tactical status of enemy forces? Lieutenant Paul Wilson responded from the tactical station. Drakari ships are scrambling to respond, Captain. Their formation is chaotic. I count approximately 40 vessels of various sizes in our sector. That matches our intelligence, Alice said. They've spread their fleet too thin. Target their command ships first. The space around. Nalari Prime erupted in weapons fire as Earth ships engaged the Drakari fleet. The reptilian warriors fought back fiercely, but without central coordination they couldn't mount an effective defense. One by one, their ships were disabled or destroyed. 3 hours into the battle, Admiral Garcia's voice came through again. All ships, be advised. Drakari reinforcements have been detected entering the system. Captain Lopez, status of the blockade? Blockade is holding, Admiral, came the reply. We've intercepted 5 Drakari cruisers attempting to reach Nalari Prime. 3 have been disabled. 2 have surrendered. Alice turned to her tactical officer. Status of ground defenses? Bombing runs have neutralized 80% of anti-aircraft installations, Captain. Marine dropships can begin their approach. Begin the landing, Alice ordered. Focus our ship's fire on any remaining defenses that could threaten the dropships. Dozens of smaller vessels launched from the Earth ships, racing toward the surface of Nalari Prime. Drakari ground forces fired at them, but most of their defensive systems had already been destroyed. The majority of the dropships landed safely. Alice watched the tactical display as blue dots representing Earth's Marines spread across the planet's surface. Green dots showed liberated Nalari gathering around the human forces. Red dots marking Drakari positions were blinking out one by one. Captain? Lieutenant Miller called out. We're receiving a transmission from the surface. It's Colonel Fisher leading the ground forces. Put him through, Alice said. The colonel's voice came through, slightly distorted by weapons fire in the background. Captain Wright, you won't believe what we're seeing down here. The Nalari are rising up against the Drakari all across the planet. They've been waiting for this moment. They're helping us target Drakari strongpoints, leading us through hidden passages, even fighting alongside our troops with whatever weapons they can find. Alice smiled. That's good news, Colonel. Keep pushing forward. The sooner we secure the capital, the sooner this will be over. As night fell over Nalari Prime, Earth's forces had secured nearly half the planet. The Drakari fought desperately, but they were surrounded and cut off from reinforcements. Some units surrendered. Others fought to the last warrior. On the Vindicator's bridge, Alice received regular updates from the ground. The scenes described to her would stay in her memory forever. Nalari emerging from hiding places to embrace human soldiers. Children cautiously approaching Marines who offered them food and medical care. Nalari resistance fighters weeping as they reclaimed their homes. Admiral Garcia's voice came through once more. All captains report status. One by one, the Earth Fleet commanders confirmed their successes. The moons had been secured. The blockade was holding. Nalari Prime was on the path to liberation. Well done, the Admiral said. But remember, this is just the beginning. The Drakari control dozens of worlds. Once we've secured this system, we move to the next. The road ahead is long, but today has proven what we can accomplish when we stand together. Alice looked out at the stars through the Vindicator's view screen. Somewhere out there on countless worlds, people were suffering under Drakari rule. But now, for the first time, they had reason to hope. The war against the Drakari lasted 18 months. After liberating the Nalari homeworld, Earth's Armada moved on to other conquered systems. Each victory gave more alien species hope and courage to rise against their oppressors. The Drakari, who had never faced serious resistance before, struggled to adapt to Earth's tactics. Captain Alice Wright and the EDF Vindicator participated in 12 major battles during that time. They freed 4 different planets from Drakari control. Alice saw her crew grow from strangers into a family bound by shared purpose and sacrifice. Some were lost in battle, their names added to the memorial wall on the Vindicator's main deck. Others were promoted to command their own ships as the fleet expanded with new vessels sent from Earth. 6 months into the war, Alice was called to Admiral Garcia's flagship for an unexpected meeting. When she arrived, she found the Admiral speaking with a tall reptilian figure in ornate armor. Captain Wright, the Admiral said, "This is Kraz, a representative of the Drakari rebellion." Alice tried to hide her surprise as she nodded to the Drakari. She had fought against his kind for months but had never spoken to one face to face. Not all Drakari support the Empire, Kraz explained. His voice was deep and rumbling. Many of us have opposed the conquest of other species for generations. We were silenced, imprisoned, executed. But now, with your victories weakening the Emperor's grip, our movement grows stronger. Kraz has brought us valuable intelligence, Admiral Garcia said. The locations of Drakari shipyards, supply depots, and command centers. And something even more important, a way to approach the Drakari homeworld undetected. The rebellion grew as the war continued. More Drakari joined Kraz, forming their own fleet to fight alongside Earth's ships. Soldiers who had been enemies became allies, learning to trust each other despite years of conflict. 1 year into the war, the combined forces of Earth, the liberated species, and the Drakari rebellion launched their final offensive against the Drakari homeworld. The EDF Vindicator led the attack on the orbital defenses, while Admiral Garcia's flagship coordinated the overall battle. Lieutenant John Miller, now a veteran of countless engagements, kept the communications flowing between all Allied ships. Drakari defensive grid is down, he reported to Alice. Our troops are landing on the surface. Rebel forces have secured the main starport. Alice watched the tactical display. The plan was working perfectly. The Drakari Emperor's forces were surrounded, cut off from escape. Captain, Miller called out, we're receiving a transmission from the surface. It's from the Imperial Palace. Alice straightened in her command chair. Put it through. The face that appeared on the screen was similar to Kraz's but older, with elaborate markings on the scales around his eyes. The Drakari Emperor looked directly at Alice, his expression unreadable to human eyes. Human Commander, he began, his voice translated by the ship's computer. You have won battles but not the war. My empire has stood for centuries. It will endure long after your species is forgotten. Surrender now, withdraw your forces, and I may spare your homeworld when the time comes for revenge. Alice met his gaze calmly. Your empire is finished. Your fleet is destroyed or captured. Your allies have abandoned you. Surrender now, and we will guarantee fair treatment for you and your people. The Emperor hissed in what might have been laughter. You speak of fairness? What do humans know of ruling? You are soft, weak, guided by emotions rather than strength. Our emotions are our strength, Alice replied. Compassion, empathy, justice, these are what brought us here. Not for conquest, not for power, but because it was right. That is something your empire never understood. The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke again, his voice lower. Perhaps there is wisdom in your words. I will discuss terms of surrender with your admiral. But know this, human. The Drakari will remember what was done here. Whether as enemies or allies, our paths are now linked forever. The screen went dark. Alice looked at her officers, their faces showing the same mix of relief and disbelief that she felt. After 18 months of constant battle, the war might finally be ending. 3 days later, on the surface of the Drakari homeworld, the Emperor formally surrendered to Admiral Garcia. Representatives from all the liberated species were present, including Zial and Etha from the Nalari. The signing ceremony was broadcast across thousands of worlds in dozens of star systems. Today marks not an ending, but a beginning, Admiral Garcia said to the assembled crowd. The Drakari Empire is no more, but the Drakari people remain. They will join us as equals in building a new future for this region of space. In the months that followed, war crimes tribunals were established. The worst offenders among the Drakari leadership faced justice, while those who had opposed the Empire's brutality were given positions in the new government. Earth established permanent diplomatic and military presences in the former Drakari systems, helping to rebuild what had been destroyed. 1 year after the Emperor's surrender, representatives from 27 formerly subjugated species gathered on Nalari Prime to sign the Mutual Defense Accord. Captain Alice Wright, now promoted to Admiral, stood beside Admiral Garcia as Zial addressed the assembly. We never expected anyone to answer our call, Zial said, looking at the human delegation. We were told we were alone in our suffering, that no one would risk themselves for strangers. That's not who we are, replied Admiral Garcia. Humanity learned long ago that evil triumphs when good people stand by and do nothing. The Accord established a permanent Earth presence in the region, not as conquerors but as partners. Human technology and expertise helped rebuild devastated worlds. Cultural exchanges flourished. Trade routes opened. Species that had been enemies for generations began working together. Admiral Alice Wright stood on the observation deck of the Vindicator, watching the rebuilt cities of Nalari Prime glowing in the planet's twilight. Lieutenant Miller, now Captain Miller of his own ship, joined her. "Hard to believe it all started with one distress signal," he said. Alice nodded. "One call for help that changed the galaxy." Her communications officer's voice came through her earpiece. "Admiral, we're receiving new orders from Earth Command." Alice tapped her earpiece. "Go ahead." New distress signals detected from the Vega sector. Reports of aggressive species expanding their territory through force. Earth Command is mobilizing a response fleet. The Vindicator is requested as flagship. Alice and Miller exchanged looks. They both knew what this meant. Another call for help. Another chance to make a difference. "Set course for Earth," Alice ordered. "We'll need to resupply before heading to Vega." As the Vindicator moved away from Nalari Prime, Alice reflected on everything that had happened since that first faint signal detected by her communications officer on the constellation. The galaxy was learning an important lesson. In the vastness of space, there were predators and prey, conquerors and victims, oppressors and the oppressed. And then there were humans who would cross the stars to answer a call for help from people they'd never met, not for power or territory, but because it was the right thing to do. That was what made humanity different. That was what made them strong.